Order the regularly scheduled Utility Service Board meeting. It is January 3rd, 2023. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, December 15th. Are there any questions or comments about the minutes? Yes, Amanda?
There are corrections to the minutes. It has me as voting as participating in the voting. I'll wait till. Okay, that's all right. Well, we went ahead and Jeff started the meeting, and we're asking for an approval of the minutes. There are some changes. It has that I moved to do all the motions, but I wasn't here at the meeting.
It would have been part of the.
It probably was, yeah, it was somebody else. It's all right.
Any other comments or questions about the minutes? Can we have a motion with that change included?
So moved?
All in favor of approving the minutes with the change to the motioner from Burnham to Parmenter, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next up, we have approval of the claims. We have 4 types of claims: standard invoices, utility bills, wire transfers, customer refunds. First up, standard invoices tonight, totaling, sorry, $391,076.50. Are there any questions about the claims? I had 2. The first one on page 4, third of the way down, New Pig Corporation for spill response illicit discharge materials stormwater. Are those to help us write manuals, to do what sort of thing, or to actually respond to such events?
Yeah, you said the New Pig?
Yeah.
It's James Hall, TV. It's supplies like absorbent like material, the socks. And
those types of
and-
materials,
yes,
physical materials. Okay, thank you. And then second, the WSP USA, that's Woods, I believe, for the Stormwater Master Plan. 2 questions. One, what's the timetable of that work? And second question, will there be a draft report that we will have the opportunity to look at prior to a final report?
Yeah. James Hall again, T&D. We have the draft master plan, so we can share that with you. Woods also, there were like a second part of implementation projects. You know, I think it was a $200,000 contract. $75,000 was for writing of the plan, and then $125,000 was for implementation. And so I think a lot of these are the implementation projects we're working on. There's a green infrastructure design that we're doing and some other things. And so I think that's what some of these are. If I had to, it is all under that same contract. Other than that middle one, we did contract with them separately to do a street sweeping analysis.
So is the plan in a draft state or a final state?
I believe it's final by now.
Oh, it's already final?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we'd shared it, but maybe.
You might have.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I'm 90% sure it's fine.
Okay, well, I'll take a look to see if I have that.
Okay.
And if not, yeah, ask for that. Has anyone else reviewed that already? Okay, I'm not sure that we do have it. In any case, those are my 2 questions. Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor of approving the standard invoices, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next up, we have utility bills totaling $22,232.35. Any questions on the utility bills? Yes.
I have just a general question. So has Centerpoint now changed to Indiana Gas Company?
I don't know.
Okay, I was just, this is the first time that I've seen that. I mean, I know it went from Vectren to Centerpoint, and now I'm seeing Indiana Gas Company.
I can
I
look into that.
didn't know if are they changing names again?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay,
I'm not
all
sure.
right.
My apologies.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved?
All in favor of approving the utility bills, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And wire transfers totaling $352,796.98. Any questions about the wire transfers? Do we have a motion?
So moved?
All in favor of approving the wire transfers, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And finally, customer refunds totaling $1,122.08. Any questions on the customer refunds tonight? Motion?
So moved?
All in favor of approving the customer refunds, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Matt, are you handling the consent agenda tonight? We have a consent agenda for $6,008.48. Matt Havey.
Matt Havey, Finance. The consent agenda is one item, like you said, for $6,000.48. It is my understanding that this is software that's related to our SCADA system, and what this does is it helps program the controllers at the plants. So like telling the operators use the controls, this software helps them adjust those, is my understanding.
Does anyone wish to ask a question about this consent agenda item?
Thanks. Hearing none, there's no objection, then the consent agenda will be approved as presented. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Next up, we have a request for approval of a First Amendment to Agreement for Services with SSW Enterprises. Matt Havey again.
Again, Matt Havey Finance. This contract is to just renew our cleaning service for all of our plants. So it's just getting the same service with an updated price.
$1,000 figure probably was for 22, and then the 86 was for
Correct.
23.
Correct.
That's pretty good.
Any other questions about the amendment? Do you have a motion?
So moved?
All in favor of approving the First Amendment to the Agreement for Services with SSW Enterprises, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And then item number 6 is a request for approval of community development block grant with housing and neighborhood development. Phil Peden.
This is kind of low. Good evening, Phil Peden, Engineering Department. I think this is one of those contracts that you like to see. It's money we are receiving, $110,000, and it's towards stormwater improvements in community areas where we've found flooding issues that we were trying to resolve with some new bioretention ponds, which is kind of a fancy word for a green infrastructure detention pond. It holds the water back and it filters some through the soil. So, to answer any questions that you have.
We have any go first? So, where is this near West Side Waterman neighborhood? I didn't see anything in the contract or in the documents that said where this was.
Yeah, so Waterman's neighborhood is west of Adams, and it's between Kleindorfer's and JB Salvage,
That's easy enough.
kind of where
Okay.
the railroad tracks are through that section.
And this is just more of a technical question. In reading this over, it looked like we were having to pay this 110 but we're getting this back?
Yes.
Has the work already been finished?
No, only the design work is complete at this point, and we covered that cost. We hired engineers to complete that,
Okay,
and then we'll use the grant to do the construction.
great. Those are my questions.
I think that fit what I was going to ask. This is incoming instead of outgoing. Usually we're seeing outgoing.
Yes.
So this is funds to receive so that we can provide services.
It'll end up being reimbursement, so I believe we end up, the expenses go out, and then we receive the reimbursement afterwards.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Phil? Do we have a motion to approve of receiving this $110,000 for stormwater improvement?
So moved.
All in favor of approving the hand CDBG grant? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank
Thank
you. Next up, we have a request for approval of lease agreement with Summit Hill Community Development Corporation. Chris Wheeler or someone to stand in for Chris.
Do we need to table it then?
James Hall, T&D. So I believe this is a memorandum with the Summit Hill Community Development Corporation for a term of 99 years to lease the real estate of, it was, I think in here it says Redbud, but it was Dyer Tank that we had on Monroe and 14th, at the corner of Monroe and 14th. And we had to do remediation because of the paint that came off there. And so we got that cleaned up. We have no use for the site, and so we've handed it over to them. We cleaned it up to the cleanest standards that they can build anything on it that they would like, and having a letter from IDEM, a covenant not to sue on IDEM, saying that we've, met all of our obligations through that. So that's what I know of the property and the project. I remember them talking about this a while ago, so.
Any
I can
questions?
try to answer any questions.
And I don't know that you'll be able to answer this, but so in my research, so the Summit Hill Community Development Corporation is through the Bloomington Housing Association. And so I was wondering, were there other organizations, nonprofits that were offered this opportunity to build the child care center with the housing above? I know that there's, say, the Macomb Child Care right in that neighborhood. And then a second question would be that it says in here that it's going to be leased with the purpose of childcare and housing for the 99 years. I guess if the purpose wanted to change, would they have to come back to the USB or CBU and say, we want to do something different? And then if they said no, would that building turn back over to us, or how would that work?
Yeah, so the first one, I don't remember there being a discussion of other nonprofits, available. Chris may know more about that, but I remember at the beginning when we started going through this, I don't remember anything else out there. And I don't know how we decided that's the way we did it. Chris, maybe I'll answer. And then to your second question, I don't know. I don't know what is actually in the lease to say if we'll recall. I remember they proposed this is what they wanted to do to it at the very beginning. It wasn't, we said it had to be this.
Okay.
They proposed that they wanted to do the daycare with the housing
Okay.
above, and we said that sounds like a great
Thank
idea.
you.
And
Okay,
so,
I
yeah,
did
but-
see on their website, they had a rendering of a
Yeah,
design.
yeah, they
so-
brought that to us
Okay.
and said that, and so I don't remember us making any stipulations what had to be there in the first place.
Okay.
They brought that design to us, but there may be something in the lease that I'm not aware of that Chris would be able to answer. So
All right, thank you.
How big is the property, James?
it's not super, it's probably the size of a normal lot in that.
Half
and-
acre-ish?
Yeah, maybe. It's, yeah, I'd say between a quarter and a half acre. It's not real big.
It fit the property surrounding a water tank with a bit of a buffer.
Yeah, with a bit of a buffer, correct.
So just a comment, So when I started on the board, it's about 20 years ago, we used to, the CBU used to contribute money to a sidewalk fund. You know, everyone liked sidewalks and good sidewalks, and everyone thought that that was just fine, up until the question came up, is it appropriate for us to use CBU funds for amenities that aren't directly utility-based? And I'm all for affordable housing and providing for childcare, but we might want to, the board might care to consider whether or not, you know, donating the property would be one thing, and maybe lease is something different. We haven't, you know, given up our rights to the property, but still yet, what opportunity costs are we losing here by doing this? It's just something we might want to think about as we go forward. We do have a lot of surplus property. We have a lot of it at Lake Lemon. We have a lot of it scattered around the town, and we just have to be careful about setting a precedent and making sure that we do things that are in the interest of our ratepayers, of our users. That's all I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And as I look at this, it's a great use. But, you know, you ask that policy question about whether it's, you know, smarter for us to sell it to the city and let the city have a long-term lease. That way it's not a utility property anymore, unless we can think of some reason why we'd want to put something there 25, 50 years from now and need to buy it back. But, you know, we replaced the tank in a different location. So you got to wonder whether it's a really good policy question that you raise. Because this isn't really a water, wastewater, stormwater usage. And we should think about this, I think. I mean, I understand the city's priority to do this, and it makes a lot of sense because it's publicly owned. It's just a matter of who paid for it, whether taxpayers did or whether ratepayers did. And there's a big difference there that we always have to think about, completely different than what the mayor and the city council have to think about. Maybe we should table this.
I was just gonna say, I'd like to, I would move to table this, because I would like to kind of get a little bit more into the nitty gritty, and especially with Chris not being here to answer some of these questions, I think we should table it and perhaps get some of those questions even answered that we've already had that you couldn't, you know, respond to.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Yes, it does to me. Okay, so we'll wait on this till next week and 2 weeks from now and have some discussion about it, hopefully in the interim, or at least do some research in this regard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we need to move the table, or?
I don't know.
I think so.
I think so, we have to,
We have to act on it
Yeah.
in some way.
so,
Yeah, so we'll,
so moved to table, so moved.
Second.
okay, all in favor of,
For discussion, I think it's good for us to make the point that we're not opposed to the proposed use. We're just thinking about the fiduciary responsibility of utility ratepayers. That's my discussion point in all that.
yeah, and I would add that if we were actually surplusing this property and turning it over, I'd feel more strongly about it. Lease is something
Yeah.
slightly less committing, so in some ways.
Right.
So yeah, it's something we should consider and get some advice from Chris and others. All right, so all in favor of tabling this agenda item until next meeting, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item 8, request for approval of agreement with Donahue and Associates for Monroe Monroe Water Treatment Plant Backwash Upgrades Project. Dan Hudson.
Yeah, for the record, I'm Dan Hudson, the Capital Projects Manager for the City of Bloomington Utilities. And I'd like the board to consider a contract with Donahue and Associates for the design and building bidding services for the Monroe Water Treatment Plant backwash improvements for $44,700. Now, if the board recalls, this is the same contract that was given to the board last month, but it has a corrected signature line.
Any questions for Dan?
Yeah.
Do you have a motion for approval?
So moved.
All in favor of approving this agreement with Donahue and Associates with the, for Monroe Water Treatment Plant Backwash Upgrades Project with the correct signature line, please say aye. Aye. Correct? Opposed? Great. That's approved. And we're moving on to new business. Any new business from the board? New business from staff? Old business from the board? Old business from staff?
None.
Staff reports?
Yes, we got a couple things. We have a new MS4 coordinator, Liz Carter. I think she's here. So she started with us this week.
Welcome.
And we had a pretty busy holiday season, so we'd like to recognize a few people for the amount of work that they did over the holidays, because we had this list of people worked over 135 hours on December 24th, 25th, and 26th in total. So I'd like to recognize Steve Robertson, Bryant Norman, Barry Moore, Sean Breton, Noah Campbell, Chris Egan, Josh Wathen, Phil Oakley, Bob Snediger, Gabe Avendando, and Chris Eberly for all their work over the holidays.
Thank you to those.
Did we have, with the cold weathers, did we have a lot of water main breaks and?
We had a lot of calls. What about breaks?
We had 6 main breaks, and then a lot of those were internal houses are breaking for shut-offs, yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything that our customers could have done differently to prevent any of that? I mean, after the main break to prevent the rest of it, or?
The turnoffs, maybe, like keeping their water running or whatever, opening their cabinets, things of that nature. Some of it may have been knowing where their house shutoffs were, something we discussed internally about doing the education stuff to try to help people, especially if they're renting, know where their house shutoff is, so they don't have to, because a lot of times that break isn't happening between the house and the main. It's happening somewhere inside the house when it's gotten that cold, and that they wouldn't have to call us out to do that, get charged for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
But that was all for staff report.
Okay. Petitions and communications. Well, I will just note that we weren't able to move ahead with our new election of officers, given we're waiting on appointments to come through for 2023, and we'll hopefully be able to do that at the next meeting.
I had one question.
Yes.
Okay, and with Vic not being here, maybe this will be for a next time discussion. And I know that Kirk had brought this up before about security at our plants, and I know that that's been a concern around the country at like electrical plants. I guess, is there anything that we need, and we don't want to like tell our plan publicly, I guess, like with our schools, we have these emergency plans and things, but we have them in place, but it's not like, hey, everybody, this is what we do. But are there things that we can do to make our plants more secure? Because while we, if we would lose power, then I know we have, backup fuel and things, but that wouldn't last, indefinitely. And are there things we need to be doing for our security?
I don't really know how to answer that one. I do know that we meet every quarter to discuss security for all the facilities, but Vic would be a better one to talk to about what we're missing, I guess, is where you're going, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That might be a good agenda item for us in 23.
Yes.
You might even want to think about a little subcommittee to work on that. Because it has become a problem around the country. Infrastructure is a homeland domestic terrorist threat. And We're as vulnerable as any other utility, if not more so, because of the way we're not using a well system, which is a little easier to control than the intake we have at Monroe. There's a lot of vulnerability, and it'd be smart for us to take a look at the big picture and make sure we're making the right investments to protect things. So that's something we ought to put on the list, I think, for this year.
Agreed. Other petitions or communications? Do you have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.